this relationship with the Colorado Symphony, with me becoming the next music director. I don't know that there was ever one moment where all of us said, yep, that's it. The whole experience of the music making, not just in the concert, but in the rehearsals, knowing that we had that great chemistry, meeting quite a lot of the staff, knowing that we had great chemistry as well, and learning so much about the Colorado Symphony and our mission and how closely that aligns. You put all of those things together and it really is a match made in heaven. Working with the Colorado Symphony musicians was a really extraordinary experience. You never quite know when you stand in front of an orchestra for the first time how open they'll be, how receptive they'll be to new ideas. And with the kind of repertoire that the orchestra and I did on our performance together, it was so varied. I mean, there was Beethoven and Brahms and Rimsky-Korsakov, but there was also more pops type fare with John Williams and Leroy Anderson. And so as we went through the rehearsal process, and I saw that they were able to so easily change costumes, as it were, between every one of the pieces, it did nothing but instill confidence in me that we would be able to tackle all of those things. There's something really special about a theater in the round because you really, as one of the performers on stage, to be surrounded by the audience that you're playing for, to really be in the middle of everybody, it's a really wonderful thing because, especially as a conductor, when I'm facing the orchestra, in some cases it's actually kind of easy to forget that the audience is even back there and you're just with the orchestra. But in Becher, because of the extraordinary setup, you really are immersed in the audience, and I think that ends up making for a much more immersive experience. My musical journey really began at the piano. I've always played the piano my whole life. I took some piano lessons when I was younger, but ended up stopping that when I started playing in the bands in elementary school. I will proudly tell you that I played alto saxophone. It was the 80s, you know. And then I ended up switching when I was in high school over to the percussion section. So for most of high school and college when I was playing in ensembles, if I wasn't playing the piano, which I've always played, I was playing percussion. I was a junior in high school, living in Seattle, and I thought at that time that I might want to be a music educator. So I went to the Washington Music Educators Association annual conference, at which the All-State Orchestra played. And they played the finale of Mahler's First Symphony, and I was blown away. And especially as a 16-year-old, you know, when you're so open to these things and anything that's kind of hard on your sleeve is so great when you're a teenager. We all have that teenage angst, and who expresses that better than Mahler? So that was a real turning point for me, and it was the point where I realized that I didn't just want to be involved with music for the rest of my life, but that I wanted to be involved with orchestral music and classical music. When I went to my undergraduate degree at Western Washington University, just north of Seattle, where I'm from, I had to decide what I wanted to study, and did I really want to become a pianist, or was there maybe something else that I wanted to do? I was born in 1979, so I grew up with Star Wars and Superman and E.T. and Indiana Jones and all of that. And so when I found out that all of that music was composed by one guy, John Williams, I thought that maybe what I would like to do was write film scores myself. And so I ended up getting an undergraduate degree in composition. And I did a little bit of film and TV work when I was an undergrad, but by the time I went to grad school, I knew that I wanted to become a conductor. And so that was when I really started in earnest the journey towards becoming a conductor. As I go on and on in my career and I work with such great orchestras, I've learned to release how exactly does this piece go. Are there details about which I'm very convicted and feel very strongly? Of course, but all 100 people in front of me when we're rehearsing, they all have music degrees too. They all have life experiences that allows them to make contributions. And I view my role as a leader not as this is the way it has to go, but as trying to bring out the best in every single person on stage. And that really means allowing the musicians to be themselves. And I think that's something that as a younger conductor, I probably wasn't so good about, but I think I'm getting there now. Don't know that I could narrow down my favorite piece to conduct. There's so many great pieces out there. I always love conducting anything by Mahler. And it's not just because it's so big and it's so epic and there's a lot of film scorishness to it. I think it's because, Mahler said one time that a symphony should be like the world. It should contain everything. I always enjoy performing Stravinsky. Stravinsky's a composer that's very close to my heart, whether it's an earlier romantic work like The Firebird, or just 3 years after that with The Rite of Spring, which is so technically challenging for the conductor and for the orchestra. But I also have to say that I have a very special place in my heart for contemporary music, and maybe that comes from my background as a composer myself. But I feel like there are so many wonderful composers that are working today that have very specific things to say, not just for posterity, like when we play Beethoven and Mozart, they're speaking to all of humanity. But that's not our business to discover. Our business is to make sure that we are playing all of this great repertoire because these composers have something to say specifically to us in this place, to us at this time. And so anytime I get my hands on a contemporary piece, or especially a world premiere, there's very little more exciting for me in the world than that. It's funny, at home we don't really listen to much classical music actually, because it's what we do all day long. My wife is a classically trained soprano and I conduct orchestras, and so even when I'm not on the podium conducting, I'm usually at home studying. And so when we have the chance to listen to music at home, it's almost never classical music because we can't keep it on in the background. It's something that we're trained to listen to. And so we listen to an awful lot of the music that our parents listened to when they were growing up, because that was the music that was in our houses when we were kids. So a ton of Beatles. We've been listening to a lot of Beatles over the last couple of years, really going through the whole catalog. Simon and Garfunkel, Billy Joel, Elton John, all of that great music from the 60s, the 70s. I also have to say, I spent a lot of time having a really great love affair with jazz. Jazz is a hugely important part of who I am. I played piano in a jazz trio for most of high school and all of college, and it's something that I actually miss a lot. And so part of the way that I kind of alleviate those pangs of, oh, jazz, come back to me, is listening to a lot of jazz at home, and we'll listen to anything and everything. I've lived in Austin, Texas, I lived in Chicago, I've lived in Houston, I've lived in Cleveland, and all of those places are great, and they have wonderful things about them. But what none of those places have is anything on the horizon. And when you grow up in Seattle with mountains and rivers and trees and water and all of that stuff everywhere, and that's the lifestyle that you grow up with, to do without that, as I have for the last 15 years, there's a little part of you that's missing. And so to come here to Denver, to come back out west, I think that's the thing that we're most excited about, is the ability to be back outside and back in nature. And we also love to spend as much time outside as we can, especially on our bikes. We love to bike. Sometimes we'll take half a day and go somewhere. It's one of our very favorite things to do. So my wife and I really love to cook at home. We are big foodies. The first improvement that we did to our home in Cleveland when we bought it was yanked the electric range out and replaced it with a gas range as soon as humanly possible. I love to read as much as I can. Sometimes during the season that's not the easiest thing to do because you're so busy. What I'd love for our time together here in Denver to be is, I would love for this to be as welcoming an environment as it can possibly be. I would love for everybody to feel not only that they're welcome in Betcher, but that all of us on stage are approachable. I'm just a regular guy like everybody else. I just happen to have this job that's a little bit outside the norm. But I get just as excited as everybody else does when the NFL season starts. I get just as excited as everybody else does when Game of Thrones comes back. And if we have all of these various things in common, if we share 97% of, oh my gosh, isn't this so exciting, I bet I can get you excited about coming to the orchestra. And I want for this to be a time of great exploration together, but of great fun. That is, at the end of the day, what this is all about. This is supposed to be enjoyable. It is supposed to be entertaining. It is supposed to be fun. And that's what we're going to do at the Colorado Symphony as long as I'm here.